Hello, this is OverlordBou, and today I'll be covering the upcoming Tier 9 Russian light cruiser, the Kozma Minin. You're able to get her as part of the Red October bounty event in the premium shop and armory on Wednesday the 16th if you're on NA, and if you're on EU and Asia, you'll be able to get her on the 17th, which will be on Thursday. Now, alternatively, you can obtain her by buying Soviet area premium containers, but I just recommend buying her directly and not gambling for her if you do plan on getting her. Now, overall, I'd say that, just a quick overview, the Kozma is pretty much identical to the Donskoi, except it has a speed boost and it has 8 guns instead of the 12 of the Donskoi. It does have the 203s and it has a 51 millimeter armor pen for the HE. It's higher pen than the Donskoi, so you're able to do more raw HE DPM. But the thing overall is the DPM for the HE is really less. It's not really strong at all than compared to the Donskoi. So your DPM is going to be lower than compared to the Donskoi. So overall, if you want a ship that's better than the Donskoi, this isn't it. This ship is worse than the Donskoi in permanent firepower, but for the maneuverability, this ship is slightly more maneuverable than the Donskoi, and I'll get into that in today's video. So let's just start talking about some of the ship's stats. Now, for the hull, the ship has almost the same hull as the Donskoi, with a 43,400 HP on par with most of the light cruisers, but bad by heavy cruiser standards. You do get the 25 millimeter bow/stern with the 30 millimeter deck and the 25 millimeter side armor. Note, this is an improvement than the Donskoi, so you do get slightly more armor. You do get a 100 millimeter belt armor with a 16% torpedo protection with a 30-second fire, which is a major difference from if you compare it to like a Henry 4 where it has a 60-second fire. This thing only gets a 30-second fire. Now, basically, these stats are basically the same as the Donskoi, except for the heavy cruiser armor plating on her deck and sides. This definitely helps you when fighting smaller caliber battleships and preventing overmatching, but otherwise, it functions the same. It's pretty much, it's overall squishy due to the poor citadel protection, the lower HP pool, and the poor turning. But you gotta be definitely careful to angle properly, or you'll be sent back to port quickly. I've had a lot of experiences while playing this ship where I would angle perfectly or move her perfectly, and I would still get slapped for about 16k by a Musashi when I was cutting away from it, just because this thing doesn't have a lot of armor. It's practically a light cruiser with some heavy cruiser armor on it, so battleships are still going to be able to pen you, do that heavy pen damage, or just straight up citadel you. So definitely be very careful when playing this thing. Make sure you stay at max range. Do not get close, because if you get too close, you're going to be in a lot of pain against those bigger caliber battleships. Now, for the main feature of this ship, which is the main guns, you get 8 203 millimeter guns with 4 in the front and 4 in the back, with very strong firing angles. You can still angle while firing broadside, which is very important in this ship, because if you do not angle on this ship properly, you are going to get death struck. So definitely be angled when you're firing your guns, or just be moving so you can easily turn quickly. Now, you do have an 18.5 kilometer range, which is all right, with a 9.5 second reload, which is faster than the Donskoi. But remember, the Donskoi has 12 guns and this ship has 8 guns. It does have the same ballistics as the Hipper, Roon, and Hindenburg, which is good, but not as good as the Russian cruisers. You do get the included 1/4 HP pen since it's from the German side. So her HE can pen 51 millimeter armor with a 22.5 second turret traverse, which is really good for the guns. The Kozma's firepower is almost identical to a Roon, with slightly worse alpha strike and DPM due to the fewer guns. Compared to Donskoi, the Kozma loses some firepower, but makes up for it with slightly better range and the 51 millimeter HE pin, meaning the Kozma prefers for better versus battleships, but not as good as a Donskoi for fighting other CLs or destroyers, as you'll be seeing in this match. Now, funny enough, the Donskoi's AP is slightly better due to the higher broadside damage and near identical pen values. Also, the Russian anti-friction physics for you. So pretty much this ship does have a lower DPM than the Donskoi, which is like my main caveat. It's like, is this ship really worth it? Like you can get the Donskoi for free, or you can buy this ship, but like you can just get the Donskoi for free. So I don't really see a point in buying this ship. If you're more of a ship collector, then yeah, sure. But overall, like, better DPM on a Donskoi, then you have this. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of easy to showcase that. Anyway, if you're comfortable with Hindenburg guns, then you'll feel at home with the Kozma's guns. Again, also with this ship, it does have a very rough time fighting destroyers, because again, these are more German ballistics on the guns and not Russian, so the shells aren't going to be as fast as the Russian guns, so it's going to be a little bit harder to hit the ships. Also, I found the dispersion really trolly on these guns, kind of like German accuracy. They weren't super accurate. They're like pretty like trolly with the dispersion, as you'll be seeing in this video. Some shots be like why the heck did I not hit, or why did it spread? It's like I don't know. Some dispersion was really good and some was just all over the place. The inconsistency really just made me like feel like this ship just isn't worth buying due to that. Like normally if you get a premium and you get a Russian ship, you expect the shells to go pretty much somewhat where they're supposed to go, and at a decent, you know, at a fast pace because of the Russian anti-gravity physics, of course. But in these matches I was playing, like, no, the guns just weren't going where they were supposed to. Could it be slight skill issue? Yeah, I could admit that slight skill issue. But at the same time, there's shots that should have definitely hit, and this person just trolled because it had 8 guns. Now, if it had 12 guns, then yes, it would definitely have hit, but there's only 8 guns on this ship, which is the major thing. Now, if this ship had 12 guns that were like the Roons, yeah, I would definitely way more likely recommend this ship. But the fact is, it only has 8 and not 12, so its DPM is way lower and a lot rougher to play. So you definitely have to be a little bit more skilled to use this ship properly. You have to keep your distance on this thing, because if you don't, you're going to get smashed just like any other light cruiser. So definitely be careful of that when playing the ship. Now, for the secondary battery, not worth it. Don't build in them, please. So I'm not even going to mention that. For the torpedoes, you have 10 torpedoes, 5 on each side, that do 17,933 damage each, and it is a 6-kilometer range. Now, though these torpedo stats differ for some reason, they effectively serve the same role in practice with the point-blank rushes. Since the Kozma tends to explode when showing broadside, if you need to use the torpedoes for whatever reason, expect it to be a one-way trip, because again, this ship is slightly more armored than the Donskoi. So if you're used to playing Donskoi, then this, just expect that you're going to get death strike a little bit easier, because you're not going to get that no armor is best armor, a little bit more armor in this ship. So the shells on a battleship are definitely going to depend a lot more on this ship. For the anti-air, it is identical as the Donskoi, which isn't good to start with. The DFAA technically helps, but it's more of a placebo effect unless the CV is really potato. For the ASW, you do get the 7-kilometer range, which is not the best, but at least it's not the Donskoi's with her ship launch charges. That's like the main caveat. Donskoi has ship-based launched depth charges, while this has aerial-based depth charges. So, yeah, you can get aerials with this, which is really nice. Trying to deal with subs with surface depth charges is really cancerous to do when you're in a cruiser. So yeah, if you want a Donskoi with aerial ASW, then this is definitely the ship for you, 100%. For the maneuverability, you do get a 36 knot top speed when combined with the 8 speed boost, which makes this ship a surprisingly fast cruiser. The top speed that can max out at 40.7 knots, which is really fast, but you do have a 970 meter turning radius, which is really wide for a cruiser of this size. You do get a 10.6-second turn time, which is okay for a cruiser. While Donskoi's maneuverability isn't great, the Kozma's speed boost lifts her up to being above average, even very good in certain areas. The ship won't turn, but at least you're the fastest cruiser in a straight line, which is really nice, being able to dodge and just dodge shells that are coming in. If you're like 15, 16 kilometers away from a battleship and they shoot their shells and you use that Russian acceleration and the speed boost, you're going to be throttle juking those guys in no time and having yourself a wonderful party a few hundred meters away from their shells when they finally land, and you can just keep farming them from the back of the map. The engine boost also helps in dodging enemy attacks if you're using a throttle juke, which I highly recommend, and I'll also be having the build near the end of the video, which I'll be showcasing on what I build for the ship and the skills and modules. Overall, I'd say it's really good when the speed boost is active, but nothing impressive at baseline. For the concealment, you have a 12.6 kilometer best surface detection range and a 6.2 kilometer best aerial detection range, which is pretty good considering her radar reaches out to 12 kilometers, which is pretty much the basic radar range for Russian ships. I don't think there's any Russian ship below 12 kilometers. All of them been pretty consistent at 12 kilometers. But yeah, having the radar range at 12 kilometers and the concealment 12.6 means that if there's a DD in front of you and you're just spotted, that means you just fast W at it. You're able to run into it and then click your radar to get it perma-spot. So pretty much what I do is in this video, you see me kind of like waiting for the Holland to show up. You'll see later on the video. And a lot of other times there'll be a DD in front of me and then I'll be cutting away and I'll turn around when I go dark and run right at it and he won't expect it. I'll run at him. I'll get spotted. I wait about 10 seconds or so to give myself time to get inside a radar range, and then I radar, and at that point he'll be within the 12 kilometers, which will then mean I'll be able to catch him with my radar and then start hammering him for as much damage as I can. So pretty good in that regard. All right, so the final stats we'll be going over is going to be the consumables. This ship is pretty standard. You get a 5-second DCP, which is normal for all cruisers. You get a standard cruiser repair party, pretty normal. You do get the standard 8% speed boost, which we talked about earlier, with the 12 kilometer radar and the 25-second reload. Sorry, 25-second active time, not reload, my apologies. And then a standard DFAA or Hydro. Now, again, of course, you're going to pick Hydro. There's no point in picking DFAA. Just pick Hydro. No point in taking DFAA. Just pick Hydro, please. And so all these consumables are pretty standard for a light cruiser with the added speed boost on top. The 12 kilometer radar is just as potent as the one on the Donskoi, so wreak havoc with that. The console will wreck any DD she fights against, as long as they're within close enough range, because sometimes her dispersion can be pretty trolly, and her guns can wreak havoc on destroyers. They definitely can, but I've had a lot of trouble trolling with the dispersion when I played this ship, so sometimes it's great, sometimes it isn't. While with the Donskoi with those 12 guns, if you catch a DD, it is going to be miserable. But with this ship, it's a little bit harder to hit the ships due to the fact that the guns are more Roon ballistic wise, a little bit slower, not as fast as the Russians. This person's a little bit trolly at times, so sometimes you'll do a lot of damage, sometimes you won't. Kind of in that middle area sometimes with being able to hit the destroyers. Like overall, I would say the Kozma is definitely better at farming battleships and heavy cruisers at long distance with HE and AP, while the Donskoi is better at farming, like killing destroyers, light cruisers. It can do more all around, aiming at the destroyers and cruisers, while this ship is more of a BB and cruiser farmer. So overall, I would say the Kozma is what happens when the Roon and a Donskoi make love to each other, right? And had a baby cruiser. In this case, the Kozma inherits Roon's guns and Donskoi's hull and consumables to make her for an interesting combination of firepower and utility. Now, compared to the Donskoi, the Kozma has a better time fighting battleships and heavily armored cruisers, but it isn't as strong against destroyers due to her weaker HE. But otherwise, the playstyle is the same. You just support your destroyers with radar and guns, and once you secure the spotting advantage, you can smoothly transition into damage farming. Just be careful though about showing broadside, because yeah, if you do, you're just gonna get completely dev struck and die, and then complain about, you know, just dodge mechanics, and yeah, we know how it goes. And if you do that and you just dodge and you don't die, then you'll be greatly rewarded. So the build here that I'll be showing on the top right is going to be about the skills first. I build into gun feeder first, then do priority target, which you can pick enhanced consumables instead for a longer radar. It's up to you. Then I do adrenaline rush to get that extra DPM when you get hit, of course. Then concealment. After that, I normally say to take the 4-point RPF, but it's better to build into health and survivability before the RPF, so RPF is going to be the last skill. Normally I don't recommend this, but on this ship it's better to take the health skills and the Super 10 over the RPF. For the modules, you do the main armament in slot 1. Slot 2, I do radar module for longer radars. Slot 3, you can do aiming for more accurate shots. Slot 4 is for prop mod for better acceleration and throttle jukes. Slot 5 is concealment. Of course, you want to get the concealment to 12.6, so you're able to radar rush destroyers easier and be more stealthy for the final battles. Now, for the final slot is reload. You can take range if you want to be further away to be safer. I personally like reload for the better DPM, since this ship's DPM isn't the best. Now, a little history about this ship's design. In the 1930s, the German and Soviet military often cooperated with each other, including technology transfers. One such example was the sale of the Admiral Hitler-class cruiser, the Lutzow, to the Soviet Navy in 1940, and the Kozma Minin represents one hypothetical example of Soviet ship designs incorporating the latest in German technology, and in this case, mounting Hitler guns on the Donskoi's hull. Now, if this ship interests you, then you can get her as part of the Red October bounty event in the premium shop in Armory, which will be starting on Wednesday the 16th for NA, and on EU and Asia on Thursday the 17th. Alternatively, you can obtain her by buying Soviet area premium containers, but I recommend buying her directly and not gambling for her if you are interested in her. Now, my own personal opinion, I don't really think this ship is worth it. I'd rather just play Donskoi at this point. The ship's playstyles are so similar. I'd rather just take the ship that has more guns and shells that are faster and more accurate than this ship here. So I wouldn't really recommend buying this ship. That's my overall review. If you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely let me know in the comments down below. This is OverlordBou, and I'll talk to y'all later.